I'm Barbara Gregorich, author of the crossover book Jack and Larry. And I call it crossover because it's meant for ages 10 to 100, kids and adults. The fact that I consider Jack and Larry a crossover book might be a reflection of the difficulty I had writing it. My very first attempt was a picture book focusing on Larry the dog. My working title was Larry Leaps In, which is the title of a jazz tune written by Lester Young and recorded by Count Basie's Kansas City 7 way back in the 1930s. That manuscript just did not work out. I couldn't make the story come to life. And I suspect that the reason for that was that the picture book story was Larry's story. And I think, and in fact, I know that deep down inside, I felt I wanted to tell the story of both Jack and Larry. After I abandoned the picture book approach, I tried writing a middle grade prose book about both Jack and Larry. That did not work out. And I feel the reason it didn't work out is that I just didn't have enough information to work with. Jack Graney, well known during his baseball playing days, 1910 to 1922, and maybe even better known during his baseball broadcasting career, 1932 to 1953, did not have a biography written about him. Nor did he write an autobiography, nor were there any master's or doctoral theses written about him, nor was he featured in any of the books about players of his era, such as The Glory of Their Times, nor were there oral histories from his player days. And it was during his player days that the story takes place. So, because I didn't have a wealth of information, such as I would have had if I were writing about his teammates Nap Lajoie or Tris Speaker, both of them in the Baseball Hall of Fame, the middle grade prose nonfiction book did not pan out. After that, I pondered whether I should forget about a book and write a magazine article instead. I even had a market in mind, Timeline, the magazine put out by the Ohio Historical Society. And I was going to collaborate with Fred Schuld, a fellow member of the Society for American Baseball Research, SABR. It was Fred who had steered me toward the story of Jack and Larry and kept encouraging me to write it. Well, Fred and I started writing the magazine article, but we never finished it. And I'm pretty sure the reason we didn't finish it was that we both continued to think of the story as a crossover book for kids, but also for adults. A magazine article did not have and does not have that quality of crossoverness. These attempts, by the way, took maybe 4 or 5 years total. At the end of that time, I put away all my manuscripts and decided to let the idea simmer in my brain. And simmer it did for maybe another 2 or 3 years. And then one day, I recall it was a very cold day in January, I pulled out all my manuscripts, put them on a side table, sat in an easy chair next to the side table, grabbed a brand new notebook and a pen, and titled the notebook Jack and Larry. I was ready to begin again. Once I was comfortable, I just sat there. Nothing happened. I began to doodle on the first page of the notebook. I stopped doodling and closed my eyes. I don't know for how long I did this, but at some point in the process, I had an inspiration. My inspiration was this. If all the sources for the story I wanted to tell were small newspaper articles of 50 to 100 words, and they were, then why didn't I tell the story in vignettes rather than in long prose paragraphs? A vignette being a brief description or portrayal of something. As I was thinking about this new approach to telling the story, I realized that by doing it this way, I would be respecting my sources. Short clippings would be brought to life through short descriptions. And those descriptions would be poems, not rhyming poems, but free verse. I wanted readers to experience the story of Jack and Larry as if they were outside a ballpark looking inward through a knothole in the fence. They were seeing part of the game. Once I realized that I wanted to proceed in this fashion, the writing of the story was relatively easy. It still went through 3 or 4 additional drafts, but none of the drafts altered the basic structure or approach. And that structure is a year-by-year organization, the years that Jack Graney played for the Cleveland team, first called the Naps, then the Indians. I will now read you 3 poems from the book. Here's the first one from the 1912 chapter, and it's entitled Left Out. John Gladstone Graney, better known as Jack, comes from Ontario, Canada, where friends call him Glad. Jack is glad for many things: to have family and friends, and to play Major League Baseball for Cleveland. But Jack is not glad about everything. Something is missing. Jack bats left, throws left, plays left field, and feels left out, left behind in the pennant race, always nabbed by some other team, never by the Cleveland Naps. And now something else makes Jack unglad, makes him fear he will be more left out than ever. The second one is from the next chapter, the 1913 chapter, and is entitled Entertaining the Fans. At home in League Park, the Nap players entertain their fans with leapfrog, a new trick they have taught Larry. The players line up front to back and bend forward. Larry leaps onto the back of the last player, and from there to the back of the next, and the next, and the next, until he has touched each of them, until he has leap-dogged everyone. And the fans love it and clap and shout because they want this team to win the pennant. And here's the final one from the 1916 chapter, and it's entitled First Number 1. Some firsts are important and some are just fun, but both help build morale. In baseball's early days, players wear uniforms, they wear attitudes, and they wear down, but they do not wear names or numbers. On June 26th, though, in a game against Chicago, the Cleveland players pinned numbers to their sleeves. As leadoff batter, Jack wears number 1, becoming the first major leaguer to bat while wearing a number on his uniform. Jack and Larry was one of the most difficult books I've ever written because I just couldn't see the structure of the story, not for years and years. But just because a particular book is difficult to write doesn't mean it's difficult to read. Jack and Larry is a smooth, easy read. I've heard this from kids and from their parents and grandparents. Jack and Larry is a small slice of baseball history, a depiction of Jack Graney as an important member of his team and as a much-loved player, and later as the first player to become a baseball broadcaster. And I often hear from readers about how much they enjoy this story, which makes me very happy because it makes all the work worthwhile.